Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We got the first piece of big news that we've really gotten in a while, with Russell Westbrook being traded from the Washington Wizards in exchange for John Wall. So clearly this is a big deal, and I'm excited to talk about it. Before we get too far into this, though, I want to remind you all to leave a like and subscribe. I've been appreciating all of the support that I've been receiving lately, and I hope to see that continue. Without further ado, let's talk about the Rockets and the Wizards. But we'll start with Washington because I think that this trade is really much more of a win now move for them. I am pumped because we're going to get to see Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal, two top 20 players on the same team. This increases the strength of the Eastern Conference even further. I already viewed the Eastern Conference as starting to close the gap and really catch up to the Western Conference. But now, the Eastern Conference is even better. I think Washington is probably the 8th best team in the Eastern Conference, and you could even debate that they're worse than a team like Atlanta, or a team like Charlotte, or even a team like Chicago. The Eastern Conference is stacked. It starts with Westbrook and Beal for this Wizards team. That is an elite backcourt. That there's no way that there's top five backcourts better than that. So you've added a top 5 backcourt in addition to a team that was already elite offensively. You've added one of the players that, although he is polarizing, everyone can agree that he is a lethal scoring guard once he puts his head down and gets his mind towards getting to the rim. Obviously, there's some questions here. Is Russell Westbrook going to be willing to give the ball up to Bradley Beal? But really, I think that this is perfect because what Russell Westbrook, when he was at his best last season, it was when the Rockets took 4 floor spacers and put them around Westbrook. In this case, the Wizards have some pretty darn good shooters. Bradley Beal, obviously elite. Mo Wagner can shoot well from the 4. Davis Bertans is elite, one of the best shooters in the entire NBA. Thomas Bryant is starting to develop a game from the 3-point line. Ish Smith, decent shooter. Robin Lopez, decent shooter, especially for a big guy. We saw him take great strides in the Bucks system last year. Obviously, at the other wing positions outside of Bertans, there are some struggles. Danny Avdija is not a great shooter. Rui Hachimura is not a great shooter. But this team is going to be able to surround Westbrook with good shooting that's going to allow him to become a complete menace, and both creating shots for his teammates off of secondary looks where he gets to the rim, finds an open teammate on the 3-point line. They can either take a wide open 3 or use that to attack the closeout, and they can get to the rim and start an endless cycle of attacking closeouts and creating efficient looks for your team, or he can just flat out finish over dudes. So I think that it's a perfect fit. Bradley Beal has shown a willingness to play off the ball in seasons past. I get it. He averaged 30 points per game this past season. He's going to want the ball in his hands at times. But he also was John Wall's teammate for a while, and during that time, he was not on the ball as much as he was during this time when Wall was injured. So while Westbrook is out of the game, clearly Beal is going to have the ball in his hands. And I think that the Wizards should do what they can to stagger those two's minutes as much as possible. Have one of them on the court at all times. Ish Smith is a very capable guard who can run the second team for your team. Raul Neto is another point guard that I think does a nice job. He's not great offensively, but on the defensive end, his contributions should not be overlooked. But I still think that this team would be best off keeping one of their 2 stars on the court at all times, especially because when Westbrook is off the court, it allows Beal to become more aggressive. When Beal is off the court, it allows Westbrook to become more aggressive. But even when they're on the court together, I think that this offense needs to be focused on Russell Westbrook, allow him to be the primary ball handler for your team, and let Bradley take on a bit of a more of an off-of-the-ball role, which he absolutely does not need. But I think that he can become even better off of that role. Obviously, he was terrific this past season. How he didn't make an All-NBA team is a big question to me. I would have put him on there over his new teammate, Russell Westbrook. I would have probably put him on there over a guy like Ben Simmons. But nonetheless, Bradley Beal is terrific, and I think that playing off the ball is going to allow him to shoot the ball more efficiently, and it's going to create some better looks for him in order to, once again, improve that efficiency. Overall, I think that this greatly improves this team. People were saying, well, if John Wall comes back and looks healthy, maybe they can be the 7th seed or the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. Well, you basically got a player that's better than a fully healthy John Wall in Russell Westbrook. So if people are going to, after this trade, say, well, the Wizards are in competition for the 8th seed, I really don't think they are. I think that they are a clear favorite to finish in the top 8 in the Eastern Conference. And after the institution of the play-in tournament, they don't even need to make the top 8 in order to be a playoff team. So if I were a betting man, I would put money on the Wizards making a playoff run next season. I think that this team is going to function very well. They have a really, really good best lineup that they can trot out with Westbrook, Beal, pick one of Avdia Brown Jr., Hashimura, and then Davis Bertans and Thomas Bryant. That is a really, really good team. Absolute incredible floor spacing. I think they do need to add another 3-and-D wing player. I don't know necessarily who that player is, but if they can get into the trade market and bring in another wing that can provide you reliable minutes, especially on the defensive end of the floor, that would be huge for this team. But as currently built, I think that they're in a really good position moving forward, and I think that this is a really good deal for them. Overall, the fact that they only had to give up one first-round pick to offload that John Wall contract, and they also brought in a player better than John Wall, I think is an absolute win for this Wizards team. I am going to give them an A in this trade. I think that they did a fantastic job. Also, Shams recently tweeted out the the protections on that first-round pick. It's lottery protected, then top 12 protected, then top 10 protected, then top 8 protected, then 2 second-round picks. That's right. This pick will either be a pick located outside of the top 8 or a pick that isn't even a first-round pick. It's 2 second-round picks if the Wizards are bad, which I don't think they will be. I think they'll make the playoffs this year. I think that there's a chance that they're still a playoff team in 2023. It depends on how Russell Westbrook ages, and maybe they're not. Maybe Bradley Beal is gone at that time, and Russell Westbrook is a deteriorated shell of his former self. But even if that does happen, this team's probably going to be picking in the top 8 at that point. So I think that that was absolute great deal by Tommy Shepard, and I'm a big fan of this move for the Wizards. I'm giving them an A. On the Rockets side, you paired James Harden with a player who has stated he's willing to, he said, John Wall did say, I'm willing to play off the ball now more. We've seen Bradley take a step forward, and I'm willing to play off the ball. And obviously that was kind of exciting because we were like, hey, Bradley Beal is terrific. John Wall is a pretty decent shooter at the very least. So that might be something encouraging. Well, now it's even more important. Now we really find out if John Wall meant it about his willingness to play off of the ball alongside James Harden. Harden is one of the greatest offensive players of all time, probably the greatest offensive player I've ever seen, with the possible exception of like Steph Curry and Kevin Durant and LeBron, if you want to count that. But I think that LeBron is probably not on the same level offensively as those guys. He's just a whole nother world ahead of them on the defensive end of the floor. But peak LeBron, yeah, I would say he's probably better than peak James Harden on the offensive end of the floor. So he's a top 5 offensive player that I've ever seen. I guess top 4. And now we find out, is John Wall going to be able to play alongside a guy like that? I don't know. We haven't seen him play in so long. Who knows how good he's going to be? I think that because of all those questions, it's really tough to be too in love with this trade if you are a Rockets fan. And I think that they really could have done a better job. I might be higher than Russell Westbrook than most people are. I think that he's still a top 20 player in the NBA, maybe even better. Maybe I'm underrating him when I say top 20. Maybe he's still top 15. But I just think that it's absolutely crazy that they were able to offload a player who made an All NBA team last season, and they brought back a player that hasn't played in 2 years, and all they got was one lottery protected, and eventually, at best, top 8 protected first round pick. The best you got was a future number 9 overall pick. I thought that they could have done better than they did, and for that reason, I don't think that this was a terrific trade for the Rockets. Obviously, the fit with John Wall and James Harden might be better. Wall is a terrific playmaker. He's pretty decent on the defensive end of the floor, and he's going to help this team because, once again, he's solid as a starting point guard. I don't think that he is on Russell Westbrook's level. I don't think he ever was on Russell Westbrook's level. But maybe he can coincide a bit better alongside his new superstar teammate than the aforementioned Westbrook was able to. This Rockets team is in an interesting position. I think they're somewhere between the 6th best team and the 10th best team in the Western Conference. Now you have a starting lineup of John Wall, James Harden, Eric Gordon, PJ Tucker, and Christian Wood. That's a very competitive starting lineup, and they've done a decent job adding bench pieces and depth to that roster. They already had guys like Ben McLemore and Daniel House. They were able to re-sign Gerald Green since he was on their team. He just couldn't play because of an injury. They signed DeMarcus Cousins. They brought in Sterling Brown. Hey, Rockets fans, let me speak to you quick. You got to steal in Sterling Brown. I thought that he should have played more than he did in Milwaukee, and I think that getting him on the deal that they did was a great deal for the Houston Rockets, and I think that he's going to be able to help out their team off of the bench. But I still don't think that this team got better from last year. You got rid of Russell Westbrook and Robert Covington. Those are your 2 big losses, and your big gains are John Wall, Christian Wood, DeMarcus Cousins. Do I think that those 3 players make up for the loss of those other 2? And I guess Jeff Green is a pretty big loss too, because he was a big part of what they did during the playoffs as a small ball 5. So I really just don't think that this team got better. I think that a ton of other teams around the Western Conference got better. Utah I already think was better than Houston. And you could argue that adding Derek Favors made them better. And obviously Bojan Bogdanovic is going to be healthy in next year's playoffs. So I think that you can put Utah over Houston. I think that you can make a really strong case. Actually, no. Portland got better than Houston during this offseason. Portland's a better team than Houston. Dallas, better team than Houston. So that's at least 3 teams passing them in the standings. So that would drop them from 4 to 5 to 6 to 7. Now you have the Warriors. I think that the Warriors are close to this team. I don't think they're better than them. So we'll keep the Warriors beneath. And then you have the Phoenix Suns. That's a tough one. I like to go with the Rockets because they have more cohesion as a roster. But I mean, it's really close. This Rockets team is walking the line between playoff team and non-playoff team. I tend to lean towards the Rockets making the playoffs because they have James Harden, who's one of the greatest regular season players that we've seen in a long time, putting up 33 plus points the past 2 seasons. The dude is ridiculous in the regular season. So I do think that this team will make the playoffs again, but do I think that they have much past a first round exit? Probably not. And if James Harden gets traded, then yeah, this team is certainly not a playoff team. And if they do make the playoffs and are a first round exit once again, I think at that point, James Harden trade talks get real serious. Getting back to the idea of this Russell Westbrook for John Wall in a first-round pick trade, I like it much better for the Wizards than I do for the Rockets, and in grading this trade, I'm going to give the Rockets a C-. I could have been harsher on this. I could have given them a grade in the D range, but I do think that they had to trade Westbrook. He clearly wanted out, as he stated on multiple occasions. So they had to get rid of him, and they were able to recoup some value in getting a former All-Star as well as a future first. So I give the Rockets a C-. Once again, think they could have done better. Think they could have gotten another asset attached to John Wall. But at least they got something in exchange for Westbrook. Once again, I think that both of these teams are on a similar level now. I think that the Rockets are probably a bit better, but I probably would lean toward there being a better chance of the Wizards making the playoffs. Oh, I also forgot that 10 teams make the playoffs now, so yeah, the Rockets are going to make the playoffs. Let me know in the comments what you think. Who won this trade in your opinion? Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I think that's going to be it for me. Ladies and gentlemen, I will see you all again very soon.